People that are building football water, but they should pay more tax.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm bringing this up. Sure.
We're good?
Yeah, I agree to that.
Welcome everyone to the February 24th special council meeting. Meeting is live streamed, recorded, and available on the internet by visiting the Town of Parry Sound website at www.parrysound.ca. I'd like to acknowledge at this time we're on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe people under the Robinson-Huron Treaty of 1850 and the waterways traveled by the Métis of this region. May I have a mover and seconder for the agenda, please? Councillor McCann and Councillor Keith. That the council agenda for February 24th, 2026 be approved as circulated. All in favor? It's carried. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof? Seeing none. Okay. We'll go right to the resolution that we have, moved by Councillor Keith, the second by Councillor Bileski. That the staff report 2026 draft capital budget and presentation be received for information purposes, and that council approve the draft capital budget and direct staff to include it in the preparation of a bylaw to set the estimates following the 2026 draft operating budget deliberations. And the council authorizes the water plant roofing project with a cost of $500,000 proceed before the bylaw setting the estimates comes forward as it's approaching the end of the lifespan. And that an attempt at grant funding for 35% of the cost will be made, and that if the grant is unsuccessful, the project is approved to be funded from the Water Stabilization Reserve. Any discussion? Ms. Phillips, you have the floor.
Thank you.
Ms. Phillips, do you want questions on the way through, or would you prefer to have them at the end?
I think we can do questions on the way through as we, especially when we get to the capital items as well.
Okay.
But that's fine. So I'll try and keep an eye for that.
Okay.
Okay, so good evening. Welcome to the 2026 draft capital budget presentation. So what's on the agenda for tonight is we'll describe the process that goes behind the 2026 budget, outline the fiscal policy framework behind the budget, and mention some capital budget highlights and further information on the budget, highlight how the capital budget is funded, the town's reserves and reserve funds, and what makes up the dedicated capital levy. I'll show where the 2026 budget dollars go. And finally, we'll go through the 2026 capital items. Okay. So each year the budget kicks off with an internal meeting where guidelines are communicated. We talk about trends and issues, as well as provide refresher training on how to use the budget software. And then managers build their budgets and we track requests from the public. Directors review the budget, the department budget submissions, and then senior leadership team goes through all the budget requests and recommended capital items, and then those items come forward in a draft budget to council. A series of budget meetings follow, and finally the budget estimates are set by bylaw. So upcoming meetings are March 10th, 2026 for operating, and then there's a special meeting set for March 24th in case we need it, and then the bylaw would come forward to council once we make it through the public meetings. The fiscal policy framework. So in the preparation of the capital budget, a number of policies are considered. The dedicated capital levies. Each year, 1.8% increase is dedicated solely to aging infrastructure, and that's a council set policy. Reserve funding is allocated according to the policy, and then any new debt must meet policy thresholds and the term requirements in the capital financing debt management policy. As well as any new debt is analyzed to be sure that it doesn't exceed 25% of the town's own source revenues or annual repayment limit. Okay, so the 2026 capital budget highlights 19 million in funding capital projects and no increase in taxation beyond the 1.8% per the asset management plan and council policy. And no new debt budgeted in 2026 and reserves remain healthy. Okay, the draft capital budget includes 29.8 million in carry forward projects from 2025. Pump Station 2 makes up a large portion of that. And 19 million in new capital projects are being proposed. Of the total, 27.6 million is funded from grants, 3.35 million debenture from 2025 budget, 16.7 million from reserves and reserve funds, and 375,000 in other municipal funding and 60,000 in other funding. 703,000 is being funded directly from property taxation. And yeah. Funding the capital budget. This chart shows that 52% is funded from provincial and federal grants. And these are the 2026 capital items. 44% from reserves and reserve funds, and about 4% comes from in-year property taxation. Now, this slide shows that after 2026 capital budget funding, 25.2 million is expected to remain in reserve and reserve funds. Each year we compare how we're doing to the BMA study, and in analyzing a comparator, it shows that the town's reserves per capita will still be higher than the municipal average, which is $1,531 per capita, and the town's projected will be $3,662 per capita after the 2026 budget. Okay. The dedicated capital levy. Each year, council's adopted policy allocates the 1.8% towards infrastructure funding. In 2026, this generates $257,838 overall. Reserve contributions are increasing by 36% or 439,000, and less is going towards in-year capital projects. So we're able to put a little bit more away for future infrastructure like bridges and things like that. Okay. So 11.6 million of the budget's going to wastewater projects and nearly 5 million to transportation. And this represents 86% of the budget, so a large percentage. Looking at the chart. And water is about 0.6 million, land ambulance 0.6 million. So this gives you an idea what kind of projects are normally funded. Okay, so if you turn to page 8 of the draft capital budget. First, the major multi-year projects and carry forward projects with additional request. So this first project, this is the Pump Station 2 project. So when the tender was awarded and approved by council, it was at 19.2 million. So the 1.27 million being added to the 2026 budget was approved in 2025, but for continuation and tracking purposes, we'll include it in the budget for 2026. The good news here is that water and sewer fees fund the majority of the increase that was in 2025, avoiding the need for future further borrowing in 2026. So we didn't have to increase the borrowing. Okay, and corner of Wood Isabella extension. So this was similarly, the tender was approved in 2025. And the scope for this portion of the project increased to extend to Winifred on Isabella and include some water, wastewater, and storm components. So this includes 2.37 million into the 2026 budget to be sure that we have all the funding accounted for in continuity for the project. So the tender was awarded in 2025 on this item. The only change here is that 124,835 is being funded from DC services related to a highway. And that's to meet the requirements that we have to spend a certain amount of DC funding collected for transportation. And this particular project was listed on the background study, so we can spend it on this item. So I've included that here in the budget. Okay.
Ms. Phillips, on this particular item, I guess the question might be for Mr. Kearns. Are we going to continue the paving down to Wabick Street? Because Wood Street is deteriorating rapidly.
So, thank you, Your Worships. That is not within the scope of this project. The limits end at Marion and up to Winifred. But so the rest of Wood was not included in this project initially.
Okay. Are we potentially possibly able to continue some paving down to Wabick Street so that I can only imagine, I know in the fall how bad that street was. And this spring, it's going to be even worse.
So I would suggest certainly we'll take a look at the surface
Please.
once spring comes around.
Yeah.
But there would be some underground work that should be done prior to redoing the entire surface, would be my suggestion. There's some water and sewer through there that should probably see upgrades before we reconstruct the entire road. But we can certainly take a look at the surface and make sure it's in a better condition.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Councillor Borneman?
I'm not sure whether this is for Ms. Phillips or Mr. Cairns, but certainly everyone realizes or recalls we had some issues with respect to the Wood Isabella Street project. Do we have any idea of where we stand financially regarding that project, or is this a case where we're going to have to wait for the final billings to be tallied up?
Through your worship, I can add to that. So those portions of the project involve removing the original contractor that Councillor Borneman is referring to. So certainly those that process is part of a legal discussion right now and a legal process. So until that plays out, we won't be able to put some final numbers to that project.
Okay. Continue. Thank you.
Okay, so the first two lines show the projects I summarized above. And retaining walls, this is another project where the tender was approved in 2025, but we're allocating the 730,000 that's still required into 2026 to be sure that we're funding that. And council approved this project already to go forward. Wabano Bridge, 150,000 additional is being allocated to that. And to recover rehabilitation of the existing bridge. And I believe options are to come forward to council before that proceeds, but if there's any questions, I could defer that. to-
Councillor Keith and then Councillor McCann.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that it's going to come forward to council. However, my concern is that the request here is for 150,000, and that seems kind of a low with the possibility of the options that may be available, especially if one is looking at heritage aspect. And I know that was quite a bit of a concern for the public. Is it possible that we might readjust that figure and little higher? What's your comments, Mr. Cairns?
So just to be clear, that's 150,000 more. The total's 500,000.
I appreciate it that the total is 500,000, but I think if there's three choices and one ends up being the more of a heritage, so that we're getting back to the timber and that, I think probably the request of 150,000, which I realize with the 350 makes 500,000. I still think that 150,000 maybe is a little low for what the request would be. And I'm wondering if there has been some examination of that, because I've been trying to do some searching there, and that's why I think 150 may be low if council ends up determining that way of doing the bridge.
Through your worship. So we were considering as staff, there's probably three further options. I mean, in order to have a functional crossing at that location that's level, with the bridge. So we know that, complete replacement of the bridge with a single span steel structure can probably be achieved at the lowest price point with probably the best overall life cycle costing. When we consider these structures are, it's probably been around for over 100 years to start with. The challenge becomes if the options come to council, a second option may be to rehabilitate the creosote soaked timbers. Evidently, you can still purchase creosote soaked timbers. Not readily available, but they are available. And finding the engineering and the firm that would be willing to work with that material may be a challenge. So when we looked at adding numbers to the 300,000, which was a little light, I think, when we went back and spoke to the engineering firm, there are portions of that bridge that are buried. They're buried timbers. And from what we can see from the ones that are evident above ground, there is a significant amount of deterioration in those timbers. That's why we're looking at this replacement or rehabilitation. The third option may be constructing a complete wooden timber bridge with all new foundations. So that would involve geotechnical work to understand, supports, how many foundation supports might be required, what the abutments look like. Quite frankly, we're a little bit out of our comfort zone with the timber structure because you just don't typically see them. So we were trying to make best educated guesses and adding the 150,000. And I think, we were trying to be cognizant of the fact that the dollar amounts do add up in a hurry. So it would almost be a wild guess if I were to say exactly how much a timber structure may cost. I would assume if we go that route, there'll be a lot more design engineering and it will not be constructed in 2026, which would afford the opportunity to fund it if it was more expensive into 2027, perhaps, rather than adding it to the 2026. That would be my recommendation. I don't know if Ms. Phillips has some thoughts on that.
So through you, Mr. Mayor. So most of the OSIF funding is utilized or allocated within the budget, so we can't simply just allocate more OSIF to the bridge. But next year there would be more funding available, so that also kind of aligns with Mr. Kern's recommendation. Or council would have to consider whether they need to increase funding some other way.
Follow up?
So my follow-up is, right now, I still think that that figure is a little, light, shall we say? And, I think council then should consider, at least another 50,000 and, whether, and how we get it. I'm sure there's a way to get another 50,000, at least to allocate it right now. And, in the event that, council ends up determining that the route they wish to go for the bridge is, a heritage aspect and timber, well, we'll already have at least have a figure that may be more towards what may be realistic, because I think everything, the prices are going up, but I think there's a real priority here. So I think this is the opportunity right now when we're setting a capital budget to come up with figures that we think are appropriate. So there must be a fund that we can pull money from.
So if we're not confident that 50,000 would do it, another 50,000, then what we could do is on report back, try to determine funding sources and have it allocated at that time if council wanted to look at the more expensive item, I guess, or do you want to add an item for like to be funded from taxation too?
I prefer not to,
Yeah.
but, so, Councilor McCann and Councilor Borneman have had their hands up too. Is either one of your questions have to do with the bridge? Okay, all right, then, and yours, Councilor McDonald as well? Okay, then we'll start with Councilor McCann.
Yeah, thank you. I think most of what I was going to ask has been answered by Mr. Kearns. I know that the group established to preserving the bridge. I know they want to preserve the heritage, preserve it in its heritage state as much as possible. I think if we thought that it was going to cost at least $50,000 more, that might be a good idea to add to it now. But the uncertainty is we don't know. Mr. Kearns, do we know for certain this year what we would do? Do we know what's coming? I guess I'm putting you on the spot here. I guess what I'm trying to say is if there's a possibility of completing it this year, and if there's an opportunity to preserve its heritage, which is what the group wants. And I think I'm also asking because I think the group was pleasantly surprised to see that there was more money added to the budget to do something with this bridge. I guess it'd be easier to vote on adding more money at this point if we knew for sure what to expect this year or what we would be paying for in the next year.
Through your worship. So as I mentioned previously, if hypothetically, if the bridge were to be replaced, the deficient portions of the bridge were to be replaced with like materials that exist now, that changes the way in which the project has to move forward. Portions of the bridge would have to be temporarily supported, removed, replaced, supports then removed and moved to another portion of the bridge. So, from an operational perspective, it's a much more complicated operation than replacing the bridge. And again, I'm not familiar with sourcing or utilizing creosote soaked timbers. So I know they do exist out west. There's a few locations that still treat them that way. Obviously, the railways still use, they're probably one of the only organizations that still use that material. My suggestion would be if council chooses to go that route or replacing it with a complete timber bridge, that won't be something that can be accomplished in the 2026 construction season. There will be extensive geotechnical work, design engineering, sequencing of the job. That will result in a closure of that area as well, just because of the nature of the work. You can't have people traveling back and forth for an extended period of time while people are working overhead on bridges and supporting structures and that sort of thing. So my suggestion would be that the two options involving timbers, whether they be creosote or non, probably can't be accomplished in 2026. So that's why I was, and Ms. Phillips was suggesting that the OCIF gets allocated annually in an amount. So if that were the case, certainly the design, the engineering, and the preparation for the job can happen in 2025, but the allocation of the funds to actually pay for the work, if it goes that way, could happen in 2026 through a separate allocation of OCIF funds from next year's allocation without having to add to taxation.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that the 500,000 now you're comfortable with then.
Through your worship, I guess as comfortable as we can be. As I said, we know all of the cost of increases, as Councillor Keith mentioned, you know, annually we're seeing increases. We've asked for an updated costing on a replacement structure so that we understand, you know, what impacts time has had in inflation on that costing. There will be obviously engineering design and inspection and that sort of thing. So as comfortable as it can be for this year's expenditures, I think we're comfortable with that that dollar amount.
Thank you.
Councillor Borneman?
Mr. Cairns, you mentioned that you'd be bringing forward options. Do you have any ideas, a timeline when that might happen?
Through your worship, so we're seeking the updated costing on the replacement bridge right now. We can speak with the engineering firm to get some ideas. I'm not sure. It may be a little bit more challenging to get budget numbers for the timber structures because they're very less common.
Okay. Bridge is currently being used by the groomer and snowmobilers. It passed the mustard last fall and is still adequate for our needs for the time being.
Through your worship, correct.
So, you know, in view of that information and the fact that timbers and let's face it, the capital budget is pretty significant, and you know, no disrespect to the bridge, pumping station 2 and some of these other jobs are going to take priority, as they probably should. They're bigger jobs, more expensive jobs in the community. So based on all of that information, I'm more than happy to leave it as it is. And if and when council determines what route we're taking and more money is needed, that we allocate it in next year's budget. And if there were any possibility of completing the work this year, can we not borrow that money from a reserve and repay ourselves in future, Ms. Phillips?
Yes, we can look at that. Typically, we do that from the capital asset legacy reserve. And we just,
Thank you.
Councillor McDonald?
Thank you, worship. I think Councillor Borneman hit the nail on the head there. I mean, if we're confident that this bridge is gonna be okay for the next year, it'd be great to see what the options are. And if staff's confident on the funds that are allocated now, then I'd be comfortable going forward with that.
So I'm going to ask a question, maybe two questions. First one is, would be those in favor of increasing the capital budget this year to include another $50,000 in it? Second question will be all those in favor that are willing to put it into the 2027 budget. So all those in favor of adding $50,000 in this year's capital budget for the bridge? Okay, there's two. All those in favor of adding it in the 2027 budget when we know more realistic as to the costs that would be. All in favor? Okay, that's carried. Yes, Councillor Keith.
Yes, it just seems to me that it's possible, and that's why I voted both times, is that one could put 50,000 into it this year and still be supportive of, if it's not possible for this year, then for the budget in 2027. So it's actually, two things are possible there. That's how I looked at it. I don't know if Councillor Ashford looked at it that way, but that's how I saw it. It wasn't A or B, it was doable both.
It's doable both, but you would have added $50,000 to the capital budget, which would have increased the amount. We would be over the 1.8%. As we're standing right now, we're 1.8%. There's no debentures. Okay, you saw the beginning. There's no debentures. 1.8%, which is our standard capital infrastructure levy. Okay, and we've got a budget ready to go as far as capital goes.
And I appreciate that, but sometimes, you know, you also have to look at what may be the best thing for your community, and whether it's 1.8 or it ends up it's 2% because of whatever the situation is. I don't think we just make determination on, oh, we're going to keep it 1.8% at all costs. That's my viewpoint.
Well, Councillor Keith, you have the right to your viewpoint. My viewpoint is that we're trying to keep this in line, okay? Because people are facing some challenging times or whatever and that sort of thing. So we're trying to come in with a very reasonable budget for this particular council to pass. And if something can be costed in the next year, then that's what we'll do. The majority of the funds are there, ready to go, that staff can work with. And then in 2027, if we need more, we can apply for it then. And we can look at grant money at that particular time. So let's move on. What? Councillor Ashford.
Sorry, I didn't speak quick enough when it came to the retaining walls. Could we just get an update for, I know you said that we had pre-approved it, but just with the amount of money there, I was a little bit, I can't remember which retaining walls we're talking about. And if this is like the kit and caboodle, like we done with retaining walls, it seems like we're close. Or if there's going to be, 2027, 2028, like is this going on forever kind of thing? Thank you.
I think it would be best to defer to,
Current.
yes, or Vinny.
Okay.
Through your worship. So the majority of the remainder of the work in this this item is William Street on the retaining walls. And they're not as prevalent as the rest of the retaining walls in town because as you head out William Street out of town, they're on your right-hand side and the sidewalk is below grade of the road. So as you're driving on the road, you don't notice those retaining walls as much as you do perhaps on Church Street. I would love to think we're done with retaining walls, but I would be hesitant to suggest that we're done. The majority of the largest retaining walls will have been done in the not too distant past at this point. So.
Phillips.
Okay, so 50,000 additional is allocated to the boat launch repairs at Wabano. And 16,500 towards the ready room construction, and that's funded from a provincial grant. The 50,000, we believe we can get that from another contribution, so. And that's just due to the cost of the repairs.
Councillor Belusky.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just, we slipped over the couple of items there. The snowplow, is that, what size of snowplow would that be? I wonder, would that be for Mr. Kern?
Snowplow.
I've got a snowplow 08100 in mine right here.
Well,
Oh, there's probably a carry forward item that just doesn't have additional dollars allocated to it. Let me just see if I can.
Your worship.
I was going by what she had on the screen there.
I'm just reading what's in here.
Okay, I know there's another list here.
Yeah, I think.
Excuse me, your worship. I can add. So
Okay.
that is in fact a carryover item.
Okay.
It hasn't, the delivery's been extended. So
Okay.
that was last year's budget item and it'll be similar to that's one of our larger snowplows.
That's one of the road plows.
Correct.
Hey, could I ask again, Your Worship?
Yep.
Is that what we paid for the last one? I thought they were higher than that.
Through your worship, I think it's in line
Is it? Okay.
with, current costing.
I thought they were a little over half, but no, that's fine. Thank you. I'm good.
Maybe Ms. Phillips, is there on this other list that we have that was in our package? Are these other items carryovers that,
So there are a number of other items that are carryovers that are just, don't have additional dollars allocated to it, so they're not in the presentation, but if council has any questions related to those, it would be a good time to
Yeah,
bring that up as
okay.
well.
any questions on those? Councillor McDonald.
Just on the town dock, washrooms, that work's been done. Is there any extra expenses happening, or is that just not paid yet in the 2025 budget?
Chief Thompson?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there is some work that still has to be done, fine details, holdbacks that are in place to ensure that the project gets completely cleaned up. That project will be completely finished before May 24th weekend opening.
Councillor Bornman?
Mr. Cairns, what's a Suez IO upgrade?
That's a canal.
Through your worship. So that's at the water plant. That's an input output control at the water plant for the membrane filtration system.
Are we good? Anything else on this list that anybody sees that, Councillor McCann?
I want to go back to the washroom.
It's right out there. No.
I knew you were gonna say that. Can I take us back? So, Chief Thompson, so I hear what you said about some work that needs to be done. It looks like there was an awful lot done last year. I guess inside there's still some finishing, but 225,000, is this a new cost or I can't recall what we had budgeted last year for, so maybe you could refresh my memory on that and just where we actually stand and how much more physical work the taxpayer would see.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, all the items that are on the most left-hand column are carryovers. Those were previously allocated amounts. And so that was what was originally allocated to the project. The town dock washroom was 225,000. There's no new request for any new money in 2026 in the 2026 budget. The project still has to be completed. So that's why it's still on the list, is that we are completing the fine details as was, as I had previously mentioned.
Yeah, I see. Thank you.
Right? Councillor Ashford?
I just want to note as well, it's not much a question, but it does seem like there's a lot of items that are on the list that it could be, it's kind of serendipitous it wasn't purchased last year, because we could add a little bit to the agenda of the accessibility committee too, over the next little bit to make sure that everybody gets a little bit of input into some of these items that haven't been purchased yet. Thank you.
Sorry, what? Excuse me?
Yeah, there's like the different sorry, I just flipped it. Items like your bleachers and different parts of the left-hand column there, picnic tables, spectator bleachers, those kind of items that the accessibility committee, the members would love to have input on if those items come up. So if they haven't been purchased yet from the carry forward, it'd be great little opportunity if we didn't get them bought last year to kind of have a few more things to add in. So I'll say page 10 and you're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down.
Well, can we like work a page at a time here?
Oh, I think- Okay.
So let's finish this one page that we've got here or whatever, and then we'll work on to the next one. And maybe get a description from Ms. Phillips on this so that we're not jumping all over the place. So we'll keep some kind of flow to this.
Sure, no worries.
Okay?
Sorry if I misunderstood.
Okay, so I think we're done on this particular page that ends with that particular one. Everybody understands that,
I think I understand what he was, so on the carry forward items, there's like
Yeah.
3 lines.
Yeah.
that you're just hoping that those items will come forward to the accessibility committee. But it won't change the budget,
Okay.
right?
So
We
we're-
could just note that. and-
yeah, so we're working on page 9 right
Yeah.
now. Okay.
So we're moving forward to
10.
annual capital expenditures. And that is on page 12.
So hang on, what about 10? Page 10 that we have in our book.
Page 10. So these are carry forward items. So if people
They're
feel like
all
question.
carry forward items.
Yeah, there's a number of pages that have that, and the items that were brought up, the bleachers and those things were items that were carry forward. And if there's further questions on
So
those.
we have allocated funds already committed to every one of those items
Yes, from 2025.
from
Mhm.
last year. So you're gonna be first on this one.
Mhm.
So you got a question with regard to the allocated funds that are already allocated to picnic tables. And you want to make sure that the accessibility committee has,
Just that it's kind of nice that didn't get purchased last year because we do have some space in our agenda this year. So I think it would be nice to have any of those put in there. So I just thought it was a kind of lucky for us, serendipitous or whatever.
okay. Councilor McCann?
Thank you. So I want to ask about the stairs, the municipal office stairs. Which one, are they referring to the ones on the front of the building? You've
Your
got
worship,
replacement
I-
outdoor staff space. I'm just wondering which ones those are.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, they're the the stairs up in the office here. It's just for some refinishing, and that project was combined with the outdoor space, which some of it's been completed, but there's still a
Just
bit of
outdoor
the
space.
project to be completed, which is refinishing and some maintenance on the stairway that comes up here and
Okay,
downstairs.
okay.
Okay, so just to follow up then, what are we doing with the stairs at the very front of the building? Are they being, I mean, we don't use that entrance really anymore unless maybe for a fire escape, but are they being decommissioned? What's happening with those?
Any thoughts, Mr. Kearns, on that?
Through your worship, so there has not been a discussion about decommissioning them. They do act as another fire exit. For that front part of the building, I would suggest perhaps maybe the fire department may have an issue if we were to decommission that exit from the administrative end. So there are accessible entrances at the other two sides of the building. So and that would create an issue from a fire perspective would be my guess.
So I could appreciate that. Okay, thank you.
Councilor Borneman?
Well, my question, I guess, is for the entire team. There are 3 pages of carryovers here. I realized last year was a crazy year for capital projects, new playgrounds, streets tore up all over town, whatever. But 3 pages of carryovers, are we too optimistic? Do we have the capacity to do the things that we're setting out to do? There's a lot of money sitting in reserves for work that hasn't gotten done. And I just wonder, you know, sometimes I wonder whether we should be maybe a little less optimistic and do the things that we're telling people that we're going to get done rather than overreaching, maybe.
Ms. Phillips and then Mr.
Something to add, I think that the word would be that we're opportunistic, because no matter how much we think we can get done, things always come up, grants always come up. So some things take priority over the smaller, less priority items, and then they like carry forward 1 or 2 years. Like, for instance, all the parks that got done, that really took priority and they all had to be done at the same time. So it's just, I feel like that happens, year over.
I get that, Ms. Phillips, but when I look at this year's capital budget, it's bigger than it was last year, and I don't know that there's a slowdown in future. And I'm certainly not critical of applying for grant money and whatever. I'm just saying, do we have the capacity to do the work that we're laying out for you folks to do?
Mr. Kearns?
Through your worship. So I would suggest, as we've mentioned on some of these carry forward projects, some of them are well underway. Some are approaching the end. They just haven't been completed as there's holdbacks and those sorts of things. So this list, I think, will look significantly different at the end of 2026 than you saw at the end of 2025. So there's a number of these projects. Now, there are some rather large capital projects that do require staff time. Some of these projects, staff can dedicate more time to. The larger projects require input, but probably not as intense staff input as some of the smaller capital projects do. So there's a number of these things that when I look through this list, I know are underway or have planning or experienced other delays that were not related to capacity to complete. Some of them had regulatory questions surrounding them that we hadn't anticipated. So once we get talking to some of the regulatory agencies, some interesting discussions come about that delay the project. But it's not necessarily the capacity to complete the project, but it's the bureaucracy and the administrative end of working through all of those things that sometimes slows down things that, and trust me, staff do get frustrated as well, that we have committed to shortening that carryover list significantly.
So maybe I'm gonna make a recommendation, given that we're dealing with the capital budget, that kind of stuff, and you know, this has all been in the works and approved in last year's budget. Could we have another column or whatever that might give us the percentage of where we're at with each one of these items that weren't completed in 2025, so that we know where we're at or whatever with each one of those projects, whether we're 95% done, whether we're just getting started, that sort of thing. And that might give council a better idea as to where we stand with regard to these items. Ms. Phillips.
Now, the top few projects are really multi-year projects, so if I
Yeah.
add them up,
Yeah.
it's about 25.3 million. So the list is getting smaller. It's just that we have some of the projects that are very large that are kind of carrying forward over
Yeah.
multiple years and expected to be, but
Well, I'm looking
Yeah.
at, you know, picnic tables, Kinsman Park, spectator bleachers, coagulant bulk delivery system. I mean, it's a $30,000 project, but you know, where are we sitting with that? Performance hall lighting, it's $26,000. Where are we at with that? You know, have they been started? Are they halfway through, 3/4 of the way done? Or are they all done and we're just waiting to pay? I think it would give council a better idea where we're sitting with each one of these projects. I think it would really help. Councillor Keith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just had two comments. For example, the tennis basketball court resurfacing. And when I look at some of these carry forwards, I'm thinking that they are basically life cycle renewals. And therefore, if it's life cycle because it's part of our asset management plan, maybe again, whether it's a column or whatever, but we have something to indicate priorities, because some of these in the big picture are smaller numbers. So if we could just know what priority they are to get finished, that would be another way of accomplishing it, because it just seems like the basketball court resurfacing, and we know that's something that a lot of people use. It'd be kind of good to know, like, is that on the of the carry forwards? Is that of a smaller degree, shall we say? Is that something that is going to be number 1 or 2 priority to get done this summer? But some way that I could know that.
Does it make creating more work, obviously, but
Like, is the objective to actually examine whether they should be in the budget, or is the objective really just that council wants an update on how they're progressing, sort of thing?
I think it's progressing and whether, as Councillor Keith said, whether it's really like if it's something that could go on the back burner for this year and done next year, right? But the money's there,
Right.
allocated in a reserve fund. Councillor Keith.
But I'm also saying not only should it, that we want it done this year, but it seems to me when there's a carry forward, and I'll just pick on the basketball court now, the tennis basketball court there. By the time it gets to being done, it's quite possible with what we see about prices of everything, that the amount that was allocated is not going to be the amount that is needed now. And so it'll need to come back to council. So I think, again, if we knew what our priorities are there, it might help us say yes. And also it would encourage staff, I know they're busy, but prioritize that when they're looking at the budget after it's completed to know, hey, we better, we gotta push this forward now.
Mr. Harris.
Through the mayor, I think staff on an ongoing basis prioritize projects. It's a very fluid organization, very fluid. We just got a $7 million grant on approved for the province. If we hadn't have got that grant, we'd be working on, at least that department would be working on different projects. Priorities shift and change depending on just a number of things. And you could put something as a priority today, and a month from now, it may change depending on what happens, complaints from the community, something, and then there's the unexpected things that break. So these things, we view all these things as a priority for council. That's why council approved them and put the money behind them. And then the community knows these things are happening. If it doesn't happen in 2026, it's on the list, and leaving it on the list gives the community a sense, okay, it's a big list. Staff are working through it, but it's on the list. You start moving things off the list that were previously approved, and that's going to give the community a bit of a not really certain what's happening. So I think they're on the list. Each department works through them to the best they can. Circumstances change. They're all important in a sense because they've been council approved, but we try to get the right ones done at the right time. And I think, there's a lot of construction going on, and I think staff have done a good job at working on the ones that need to be worked on when the work needed to be done. We had to step in and take over the Isabella Wood project. Huge amount of staff time to set that up. There was a lot of legal, a lot of consultation, finding other contractors. That takes you off the other things you would have been doing. So it's a very live, active project list. And I think staff innately know the priorities for the community and for public. They're all important, but there's sort of a pecking order. I don't think coming back with a list with a prioritize, that's going to be good for today, but it changes tomorrow. I think if we could report on, give a sense, percentage of completion or something that gives you a sense, because I know on this list, you can't tell if it was approved in 2025. You don't know, has it been started? Is it 50% done? Or as Mr. Kern said, we're just finishing up, or maybe we're waiting on some regulatory approval. All of that just throws wrenches into our plans when you have to deal with other agencies. We got a grant for some work, but behind that, there was so much time that staff spent with the Ministry of Environment, so that project could proceed. So a lot of it is out of our control. So if we were to give you a sense of the projects and where they sit in, started, not started, and then rough estimate of where they are, that I think that would be helpful to you and probably the residents as well.
Yeah. Councillor McCann.
I think maybe one question that begs to be asked, and it's a bit of an education for myself. We see the money or the category that's forwarded. If if in, for example, in 2025, we had a projects that we budgeted $100,000 for, half of it got done in 2026, and maybe portions of it, or maybe half of it was paid for. So the amount that we're carrying forward, was that the initial amount of 100,000, or the amount carried forward would be what's left to pay to complete the project? Because that must make a difference when we're looking at numbers at the end of the year.
Ms. Phillips?
In most cases, it's the initial amount that was budgeted because for accounting purposes, the funds kind of that you've spent carry forward. So when we report back to council in a quarterly report, the funds spent to date compared to the budget would be over if we only carried forward the part that wasn't done yet. So for like comparison and to track how far you are along the project.
I think I see what you're saying. We're not looking at a daily cash flow here then.
No.
No.
Any other question on any item in this list of items that are transferred to 2026? Counselor Bileski.
Thank you, Rick. I'm sorry, before we go away from that, the suggestion was made about putting a line item in it, and the CEO, Mr. Harris, just suggested that we could put a percentage of completion
Yep.
in that line. And I'd like to see that go forward if we.
All in favor? Okay, that's carried. Good. Any? Oh, okay, we're moving on.
Page 12. Okay, so these are the projects that we typically spend annually in these areas. So annual paving program, 2026 budget's increased 220,000 in this area. On the next slide, it lists the actual projects that are coming forward. So each year we put 200,000 towards sidewalks, and 350,000 is budgeted towards storm water items, like, well, manhole repairs and stormwater together. Water meters, we replaced 60,000. And water plant lifts and pumps, we just pull one per year, and we typically do a wastewater pump rebuild per year sort of thing. And laptop replacement, that's a yearly cost, and firefighters, we replace pooled gear and PPE for those types of things.
Any questions on any of Counselor Ashford?
I just think this is a beautiful list, big, beautiful list, but, I love the, Smith Crescent Micro Seal. I think that's good money. I think Louisa, aside from the kind of the roller coaster section there, is standing up great. Like, I'm on it every day, and so I think this is real good money, really targeted to get the best value for the ratepayer. And then I think George Street, it's been a little bit a while, and I was talking to a few ratepayers when it was going through, and they talking about the new grading, and they still kind of, even though it was graded and it was looking better, I think seeing this in the budget is gonna help people believe, you know, you gotta see to believe, but, so they're gonna have an opportunity for that. And I know I've spoken this many times before, but I think water meters are the solution for our community, that we need every house to have a water meter in order to actually conserve water and actually save the town money and save the community money. So, this project's continuing, and I think that's good. And as people buy new houses, more water meters are there every day. And I was just wondering, and I know this is for a lot, just replacement of the meters that are already in place, but I just was wondering for a quick update on where we are. Are we making good progress with this, or, you know, is it kind of plateaued a bit? If anyone had an answer to that, that'd be wonderful too.
Through your worship, just so I understand the question, So this amount is for replacement of existing water meters that have reached age. Some have been in place for quite some time and they do wear and to put everybody's mind at ease, as they wear, they under register the amount of water used. So, they need to be replaced on a regular schedule to be accurate. So that's what this amount is for. As Councillor Ashford mentioned, our current process is as houses or businesses, as houses change ownership, water meters are required to be installed. So that's, we're on a bit of a slow trek to get to universal metering in town, but that's how it works.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yep. Good. Ms.
It's,
Phillips?
it's about 58% metered at, well, this is at the end of 2024, but 58% were metered and 42% were flat rate. But since then, we likely have more metered, but that gives you an idea that we're over half anyway.
Okay, that's good.
Okay, any questions about these paving projects or I continue or?
I don't see any hands up, so continue,
Okay.
please.
So new capital projects, we're moving to page 14. General government. 375,000 is budgeted towards a new ERP system, which is a multi-year project, and the current software that we have will not be supported beyond December 31st, 2029. And this will be a really large project involving documenting workflows and creating IT system process documentation and looking at interconnections between software and involve multiple departments. So it's a big organization endeavor to replace this system. And question?
Mr. Harris and then Councillor Keith.
Yeah, through the mayor. This is one of those projects. This was the highest priority project that staff had identified. I think it was in December. We met his management group and recommended a number of initiatives in order to improve various aspects of the town's operations. We reported that in December, and this was probably the single highest priority item. It affects its financial reporting and other reporting. So it's driven by finance, but affects pretty much every department, purchasing, procurement, paying bills, financial reporting, management reporting. So this is the beginning of a huge exercise involving most departments.
Councillor Keith?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Perhaps you can tell me what the acronym ERP is for anybody else besides me looking that don't know?
It stands for Enterprise Resource Planning Software. And a large number of municipalities, any of them that are on Great Plains will have to convert. So in addition, we're in a bit of a pressure to get on a list somewhere with software because there's only so many software providers and they only have so long to really convert everybody over. But we want to make sure that we do good planning and everything as well. So we're kind of planning. We got a few years left to go, but
So in other words, what you're telling me by 2028, we need to be on board with everything? Is that it? And is December 2028 or January 2028?
I think we'd be targeting December 2028, but we have support till 2020, end of 2029 kind of thing.
Thank
But
you.
we would definitely want a little bit of lead time there.
Yeah, no kidding. Yes, Councillor McCann.
So what is reverse programming? It sounds like an oxymoron.
Resource planning, it's just,
Resource planning, I'm sorry.
it is a term
Hearing
that
aids aren't
involves
working, sorry.
like the tracking of financial information. And then now it also is kind of everybody's workflow connects to that now with
Okay.
more
I got
things
you.
being online. It becomes more complex over time kind of thing.
Councillor Borneman?
Ms. Phillips, all of these systems are becoming more integrated. Is this going to help us with asset management and all of the other things that the province requires us to be doing?
The complexity is that all of the software programs have evolved over time to address certain problems through new tools. So we have a number of different tools for asset management, budgeting, like building permits. I mean, that probably wouldn't be, we would just be trying to integrate that as an example. But throughout the town, we have a lot of different softwares. So we want to make sure we understand everything so that we can get the system that best fits with what we need. Starting with examining what we have right now and then developing a list of wants and needs for the new system and then trying to align with those.
Right, Mr. Harris?
Just to add to Ms. Phillips' comments, we've got, people needed various systems to do something in a particular department, but you end up with a lot of these individual systems that maybe don't talk to each other. With the enterprise-wide system, I think our deputy treasurer, Mr. Kuzno, said we might have, I think it was 10 to 15 different systems. And by picking a new software, it's got more inclusive applications that we may get that down to maybe 7, which means the staff, the IT staff, the staff and departments don't have to be trained on as many different applications. That's going to be a benefit of moving here, but some people will lose some functionality and others will gain functionality. And it's all about balance. Do we pick the right system? Because it won't be in every way as perfect as people would like it. But there's quite a process. And as Ms. Phillips says, the software that we're currently using is not going to be supported. So we have no choice but to change, but it should improve things, but it's going to take a lot of work and cooperation across departments.
Councilor McCann, then Councilor Keith.
So Ms. Phillips, we all know that with new software comes training, and I'm impressed with the amount of new software that town staff is having to deal with. What about the learning curve? How much time is spent in staff training, and how proficient do our people become in terms of being able to take advantage of, say, 80–90% of what these programs offer?
Well, the challenge is that you develop experts over time, but if you lose them, you are kind of developing new experts. So we're trying more and more to document procedures, but as we get a new system, we'll have to sort of start over with training, develop training documentation, do change management with all the staff. Like, what can we do, with the new system? So those will all be considerations as we go forward, like what's required and all that.
And documenting things and making your own binders and your own words is very helpful. I understand that. To get great support, then do you actually have people come and train you from the company, and then you have online or telephone support that lasts so long?
For a new system, we'll have training, but right now, a lot of it is on the job training. As we get new people, we have to show them, the things that we've learned over time in using the software and things like that. But periodically, we get training on different types of functions.
Great, thank you.
Councilor Keith?
Yes, thank you. So I just like clarity. So as a result of this ERP happening and the new system comes into play, then would one be able to, like within the corporation, be able to measure basically the amount of time that each staff person is taking to do tasks, so that in turn affects your AMP, but also it would allow you to see if this position needs to be rejigged so that another position would be more appropriate or created. Is that a possibility down the road?
So the most likely scenario is that hopefully that we can identify efficiencies so that we can do our jobs faster with less time doing routine, like more boring tasks. And then we can utilize the staff that we have to do other types of work, but I don't imagine that we're going to gain, we have a lot of work to do, but yeah.
But what I am hearing here is a possibility when you're measuring that it's possible that person A now, as a result of this great new system, they have a little bit more time and they could be taking up slack on something else. So that's a possibility in this concept and system.
Yes, so we would document processes and then hopefully target more efficient processes, and then the staff would have more enjoyable work rather than spending time doing repetitive, tasks kind of thing.
Anything further? I guess keep going.
Okay, so chambers, audio, visual. So they're looking at some improvement to video enhancements in the council chambers and possibly audio enhancements for POA court. So right now that's budgeted at 30,000 altogether.
Councillor Keith?
Could you just clarify a little bit more, Ms. Phillips? You're looking, so what are we talking about? What great things or what improvement is it that's going to happen compared to what we have now? What will be more efficient?
Well, I think Mr. Belchamber's online, so I may defer that to him and he can provide a little bit more information.
Absolutely. Through you, Mr. Mayor. We've been doing the best we can with the hardware we're using, the Meeting Owl sitting in front of you. The challenge being that the chambers is a multi-purpose room. So in other municipalities, they have the benefit of having purpose-built rooms for each purpose, meaning that solutions can be hardwired into the room to have a really great experience. For us, we have to treat this room differently day to day, hour to hour. So we've done the best we can, and certainly we've pushed the current hardware, I think, beyond what it's reasonably able to do. So I know that some councillors have been asking on again, off again, hey, can we make this better? Can we make this better? And we've gotten to the point where we can't make it any more better without making a large change. So to start, we've researched a variety of off-the-shelf solutions to see if there's something simple we can deploy. Unfortunately, the nature of this multi-purpose room means that you can't really get a good experience for everybody unless you have an expert come in and purpose build some things. So we researched companies. We found one that's in Barry, fairly local. They've helped us in the past with I think the microphones sitting at your desks when some of them started to die on us. So they've helped us before. They came in and did a site survey. And through that, we realized, hey, to make council better, we need to overhaul the way we do video. We can reuse the existing audio system to save some money. Now, because it's a multi-purpose room, we bring the POA folks in and we say, hey, for provincial court, what do you need to make this better? And on their side, when court is happening, the audio channels that are picking up individuals, whether that's a lawyer, whether that's a defendant, whether that's a police officer, they need to be individual channels so that the transcriber, when listening back, can adequately say this person said that, but person B said this. Right now, it's all one channel, which makes the transcriber's job very difficult. And they've gotten to the point where they've almost said, hey, we can't transcribe this. And that's a big problem for a provincial offenses team. So by having this company come in and help us build a better audio system for court, we've managed to kind of make things better on both sides, both council and court. That's the overall purpose of this project.
Councillor Keith?
Just one more question. For this to happen, then how long a period is it probably going to take for this to happen once it starts? Like we're talking a few months or 2 weeks or 6 months, half a year?
For you, Mr. Mayor, I imagine that once we have time scheduled and once they have researched and figured out a solution that will really work well for us, that deployment will probably take less than a week. And the majority of work on our part is going to be testing, writing new procedures, writing new guides, and training the staff who run court and council to best use that technology. So I think that'll probably take, if anything, a month to iron out all those wrinkles, put out better procedures, print out things that people can use for quick decision making when they're learning the new system, that sort of thing.
Counselor Bornman?
Mr. Belchamber, you mentioned POA court a couple times in there. Will they be contributing directly to the funding of this project?
I could help with that question. We have 10,000 funded from POA and 20,000 from the tax levy within the capital budget.
Counselor McCann?
So I like what I'm hearing. Mr. Belchamber, so we're talking 10,000 from the province, so that leaves 20,000 to for the bulk of what you're talking about doing. Is $30,000 enough to do all what you've just described? If that's the case, I think we're getting pretty good value for our money.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, we've asked for a value ahead of time with padding based on what the people were asking to do this work are guesstimating. It is the kind of solution that they haven't done before. So, we've asked for that padding because we know they're going to be researching some, not necessarily esoteric, but some unique ways of getting this challenge addressed. So we're confident that that 30,000 is going to be adequate.
Great. Well, good luck with that. I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, Ms. Phillips?
Okay, moving on. So some additional fire equipment is required in 2026. Replacement of obsolete thermal imaging cameras, replacement of the fire extinguisher training unit, upgrade to the upgrade and replacement of coveralls, as well as life cycle replacement of hoses. So that's what's in the budget for 2026. Any questions related to those items?
Seeing none?
Okay. On to transportation. Sidewalk tractor replacement and gator replacement are scheduled for 2026. The sidewalk tractor was up, that was up for life cycle replacement was a 2018, but the plan is to actually keep the replacement unit as a spare to minimize downtime and uninterrupted service and avoid needing to like rent another unit. So they'll keep it for a little while and see how that works. The gator replacement is actually a 1999 unit, so kept much longer than the life cycle. Any questions related to those?
Counselor Keith?
Thank you. Please, what is a gator? And what does it do? Because I know it's not like Gatorade.
Through your worship, it's actually refers to a John Deere product. So it's similar to, it's a utility vehicle with a dump box on the back that's used around the cemetery operations mainly. So you may have seen it operating around there.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. 9.8 million is budgeted for upgrades to inlet works and rehabilitation of tertiary filters at the sewage treatment plant. 7.16 million is coming from the health and safety water stream for this project. So funding. 500,000 is budgeted for water plant roof replacement. We're going to try for a grant for that for 35% of the project. And if we're not able to get that grant, we'll move forward with the water stabilization reserve if council approves tonight. Pump Station 11 engineering and tractor sewer camera projects received pre-budget approval from council, but we're showing that here now for continuity and tracking purposes to make sure we have funding for everything. Any questions related to these items? Okay.
Counselor McDonald?
Oh,
Thank you. In regards to pump station 11, I know there's been some conversations about servicing that end of town and some of the developments that are on the horizon. Is this the first step towards maybe upgrading pump station 11 to increase capacity, Mr. Kearns?
Excuse me, through your worship. That's exactly what it is. So this is the engineering design for a new upgraded pump station 11 and force main, associated force main to service that area of town.
Okay.
Okay. Cemetery software replacement, cemetery chapel front porch and door replacement, clean up the front stonework at Hillcrest. So that's what that item is. And replacement of 2 ambulances, medical equipment, and leasehold improvements to Seguin EMS base. That was approved through land ambulance budget resolution, so it's included here.
Councillor McCann has a question.
Yeah, thank you. So with regards to the cemetery chapel, porch and the front stonework, I was in conversation, or at least through email, with Mr. Kearns just a short while ago. I had been asked about restoring the front post there, the bricks that over time have weathered. Do we have the technology to restore them properly? That I don't know the scientific terms for, for the breakdown and disintegration over the years, but they are in bad shape. And can we restore them to their natural?
Certainly, through your worship, I'll defer to Mr. Bonaza. I think Councillor McCann's referring to the mineralization on the gate post entrances. So.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So I reached out to a company that specializes in this sort of thing, bringing it back. And I spoke with them, and they're confident they can bring it back. They give me the budget numbers that I brought forward here tonight. But it's a bit of an acid wash is what they're talking about to clean it up and get rid of it. They're the experts. So I reached out and got that to bring that forward. Also, with the door in the front stoop, I've reached out for quotes on both as well. Basically, our front door and steps are in disrepair. They're rotted right out, so they're in due for replacement. So
That's good news. Thank you. And that work could be done this summer.
as soon as we can, we will be right on it.
Councillor Keith?
Thank you, Mr. Bonaza. Just answered my question. Thank you.
Any other questions on these items? Ms. Phillips?
Okay, moving on to recreation and culture. Wabano Beach Point pedestrian bridge rehabilitation works is included back in at 75,000 per direction of council.
Yes, Councillor McCann?
Thanks. Sorry, just a very quick question. I'm excited to see this as well too. This is something we can expect. What would the time frame be that we would expect that this would be in place?
Through your worship. So it would be a probably late spring, early summer at the earliest, depending on availability of the contractor to construct. We've discussed several options. One of the challenges I'd just like to point out, this is referring to the bridge that was actually a significant storm took it out during high water, probably about 5 years ago. In that storm, there was a lot of damage done to that point as well. So the bridge is kind of a starting point, I would say, for the rehab work that will have to happen out there. The access will have to be improved, and then perhaps we'll have to take a look at what the goal is for the point. Being aware of the cyclical nature of the water in Georgian Bay between highs and lows, that point becomes fully submerged when we get back to high water levels. So, which will come back around in a period of time. So we just have to be cognizant of that in terms of what the goal is for that point, or we'll be into a constant back and forth struggle probably over a period of 2 decades between restoring it, using it, and then having it inaccessible perhaps with high water. So that's just something we need to be aware of as well.
Well, that's good because it is a focal point for a lot of people. What kind of material are you anticipating? Will it be metal, steel, wood?
Through your worship, so the anticipation is to have an aluminum structure on concrete abutments, essentially. I'll just add, the abutments that were there sufficed for a number of years, but they succumbed pretty quickly to when the high water is there. So we have to be aware of that design to make sure that the armor stone around them is also adequate to protect them.
Thank you.
Councilor McDonald?
Thank you, Worship. I guess everything I was going to ask has been answered. I'm happy to see this item on the budget, because I know a lot of people have been asking about having that bridge replaced and having that trail restored back out to the point. So it's good to see. Thank you.
Any other items on this list that? No?
She hasn't got to the second item. on it.
Tower Hill washroom. So 75,000 is in here. And staff will be examining together with the museum whether a new washroom or renovations might be needed in the building, or regardless, we think some funding will likely be required to accommodate a washroom.
So what I'm hearing is some sort of a solution in respect to this matter.
Yeah, something will come back to council before it moves forward and
Thank you.
okay, Bobby Orr Community Center, brine filter and chiller plate refrigeration. This is a life cycle replacement item. Kinsman, BOCC canteen equipment replacement, fridge and freezer. Kinsman Park lighting plan. This includes field lighting for fields 1 and 2, which are end of life, and tree replacement at Kinsman park trees at Kinsman, Wabano, Market Square, which will include 10 new red maple at Kinsman and replacement of 12 with red maple at Wabano or Market Square between there. Any questions?
Councilor McDonald?
Maybe for Ms. McNamara, just a quick question, as I know it's not on here, but where do we stand with the gazebo that was designated to come back to Kinsman Park from Canadore?
Your worship, that's not a capital item for 2026. That will be an operational item that will involve a removal and moving the system from Canadore College, where it was built, to Kinsman Park. It does not require capital funds at this time.
We're good to move on?
Okay, more continued parks enclosed trailer to allow for more efficient setup time. Market Square Park raised flower beds require some rehabilitation. Accessible access to all new town playgrounds, 50,000 included for enhancement to the entrance pathway materials and ramp work. That's recommended. Dishwasher replacement, ice machine replacement, and Bobby Orr Hall of Fame roof repairs are included to be funded from reserve, those items. Any questions?
Councilor Keith?
Yes, thank you for yourself, for Ms. McNamara. I'm wondering in respect to the accessible access on all new playgrounds, and I see the amount designated here, 50,000 is from the reserve, but if say whatever plan comes about, if it turns out it's going to cost more than 50,000, can I assume that that's going to come back to council, and where would that money likely be coming from then?
Through your worship, as directed by council through the Accessibility Advisory Committee, to get the ball rolling on these accessible entrances that are desired, staff has included a preliminary costing in the capital budget to make this happen. If approved, council approves this amount, staff will be returning to council with a prioritized plan for council's approval and adoption. And we can move forward that way. If we don't have sufficient funds, at that time, I will be coming hat in hand. I will be looking for the expert advice of our Director of Finance, who I'm sure will be able to assist when the time comes.
And can I assume if there isn't enough money, that therefore Ms. Phillips will become involved and she will determine where else that money can be found?
I can provide recommendations at the time. Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else on these items? Nope. Okay.
Okay, we've gotten to the end of the list. So upcoming meetings mentioned earlier, March 10th is scheduled for the operating budget and an additional budget meeting set up on March 24th if needed. It's planned that the bylaw would come before council on April 7th. Any items requested from the public would be coming forward with the operating budget as items for council consideration. There are some minor ones.
Councillor Ashford?
I just wanted to point out to something that I think maybe was an intentional oversight by staff, that on page 13, when there's a paragraph talking about the new 2026 capital projects, and we kind of skipped over that pretty quick because we're looking at the numbers, but I think it really describes well, anyone who's following along with the agenda there, it really describes well the work that staff has done for this, that they've really focused on the core things that are most important to Parry Sounders and the most important value for all the money that we're kind of putting up for this. So I think you guys really nailed it right in there. You got the priorities straight for our community. And, you know, obviously I bring up the string lights all the time, right? But those are not the things that are the right thing for the Parry Sound taxpayer when it comes to the bottom line. And I just really thought that paragraph was a great little paragraph there at the bottom of page 13, talking about the work you guys did. So I want to thank you so much for this.
Our pleasure.
Okay. Any further comments on the capital budget? No? Councillor McCann?
I was, this is a comment, telling Ms. Phillips just before the meeting, I said, staff makes it easy for council, and before my time, before we had nothing but paper to work with, and no spreadsheets or anything to that effect. We've really come a long way, but thank you for your work. It certainly makes it easy for us to make difference in comparisons and decisions up here.
My pleasure. So when the budget comes forward, you would like a column added for carry forward items that include percentage completion?
Yes, please.
So I can make that modification.
Okay, that would be great. Thank you. Yeah. Councillor Keith?
One more request. When we have the operating budget come forth last year, as in many years, as you can see, I like to have the paper. It's easier to kind of flip through pages. Will I be getting a binder? At least I'd like to have one with all the little papers in it. It'll help me out, please.
Yeah, yes, we will prepare a budget book and put that in your mailboxes for the Friday before at the latest. Okay.
I can work electronically. That saves a budget or a binder. Thanks. Actually, is there anyone else that can work electronically with this, or do they want paper? You prefer the binder?
You could shoot me an email if you would prefer electronic, and otherwise I could make
Yeah.
up the binder.
Yeah.
That's
Okay,
okay.
okay.
All
All
right.
right, if you can
Thank
do
you.
that for her, and that way we can save a binder and paper for those that don't really need to have it. Okay. All in favor of the motion? That's carried, none opposed. Ms. Phillips and staff, thank you very much for all of the work that you've done on the capital budget, and we are just looking forward to the operational budget, so. Moved by Councillor Borneman, seconded by Councillor McCann, that the bylaw number 2026-7578 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council be considered as read a first time. All in favor? That's carried. All members in favor of having the second and third readings? That's carried. Moved by Councillor McCann, second by Councillor Borneman, that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. All in favor? That's carried. Prior to adjourning, I'd like to offer the following information to the public regarding the next council meeting. The next meeting of council for the town of Parry Sound is scheduled for Tuesday, March 3rd, 2026 at 7 p.m. The meeting will be held at the Town of Parry Sound Council Chambers at 52 Seguin Street, entrance via Gibson Street, and will be live streamed and recorded. All regular council meetings are held at 7 p.m. on the first and third Tuesday of each month, except January and August, where only one regular meeting is scheduled. Council meeting schedule, notices of special council meetings, complete agendas and minutes, and instructions on accessing live streamed and recorded council meetings are all posted on the town's website. Go to www.parrysound.ca and use the search bar. Thank you, everyone, and have a good night. And thank you again for all your work on this.